Hey, it's Bao. So while shooting some B-roll for one of my Mind Over Matcha episodes, I stumbled upon this incredible 99-year-old carousel in the park. It had been closed for several years, but on this day, there was a lady walking around there, so when I went to talk to her, she invited me to jump the fence so she can show me around this carousel. And then a couple of weeks later, I saw in the news that the city of Los Angeles had just bought the carousel for $1 million, which led me to learn way more about it and find out that this carousel inspired Walt Disney as he was making Disneyland in 1955. So here's a little story time for you. So one of my favorite things is filming the B-roll or the additional footage for Mind Over Matcha. And on this really special day, I was shooting the crows in the trees when I noticed this interesting looking building which had always been closed every time I came through. On this day, one of the doors was open and there was this little lady walking around. And so I came up and looked inside, and through the door there was these beautiful carved wooden horses. And so I started talking to this lady. Her name was Rosemary, and eventually she invited me to jump the fence so she can give me a closer look at the carousel. And I was like, no way, really? I was super excited, and I was able to bring my camera and film some of this footage to show you guys. So the Griffith Park merry-go-round was built in 1926 by the Spillman Engineering Company, and it's still one of the last intact carousels made by this company in North America. It originally operated in San Diego at the San Diego Mission Beach Amusement Center just before the Great Depression happened in 1929. So it was in San Diego until 1935 when they exhibited it at the California Pacific International Exposition. That's an event they put on in San Diego to help boost the local economy during the Depression. And then in 1937, it moved to Los Angeles in Griffith Park, where it entertained Angelenos until 2020, when it closed down due to COVID. It opened for a little bit in 2021, but again it closed in 2022 due to some mechanical problems and some legal issues with one of the co-owners passing away. And I learned that this is kind of like the deluxe model of carousels, right? It has 68 wooden horses, and they're all jumpers, which means they move up and down when the carousel spins. There's also 2 chariots that people can sit on. They're like benches, essentially. Rosemary told me that all 68 horses were carved by the same artists. They're encrusted with jewels and fabric, and all the horses' tails are made out of real horsehair, which was so cool and so crazy. When I was researching more about it, I learned that some of the horses actually predate the carousel, some of them going back to 1895. So as we went around the back of the building, I saw this huge, big, beautiful organ. It had all these like characters and moving parts, lights, drums. It was like incredible. I found out later that it's a Stinson 165 military band organ, and it plays over 1,500 songs that are all stored on these rolls of paper with holes punched in them. So as the roll rolls, all the little holes would tell the different instruments what to play. And as it's playing, the little characters and drums and stuff move and light up. It's actually incredible. So the Walt Disney connection. In 1950s, when Walt Disney was working on Disneyland, he had a home in Los Feliz, which is nearby, and he would go to this carousel with his daughters. And as he was sitting on the bench outside watching the people ride the carousel, he thought, hey, Disneyland needs rides that children and adults can ride together. So in 1954, he ordered one of these carousels from Canada and had it shipped to Anaheim. And the following year, 1955, when Disneyland opened, King Arthur's carousel in Fantasyland was intimately inspired by the merry-go-round at Griffith Park. Hey, it's Bao from the future. While I was editing the episode, I ran into my friend Chris. And Chris is Chris Nichols, who's the author of this book, Walt Disney's Disneyland, from Taschen in 2020. And Chris gave me a little bit more information about the carousel and the bench outside where Walt Disney got his inspiration. So here is what Chris had to say.
There's the story of Walt Disney going there for Daddy's Day when he would take his girls someplace. And you know, to think about what an amusement park was when Walt Disney's era, that they were kind of seedy and kind of skeevy, and maybe they were at the ocean and they were like kind of, you know, a lot of amusement parks were. And that place was very wholesome and very, you know, in a park in a bucolic setting and very beautiful. And there's stories of Walt sitting there and watching his kids play and being inspired to create Disneyland. And the actual bench that was at the park that they claim was the one Walt was sitting at when he figured out what Disneyland would be is now on display at Disneyland.
Hey,
which is pretty great.
who took the bench?
It's I think it's through the Walt Disney Family Museum in San Francisco, which is where a lot of his personal effects ended up. And it's just kind of great because it's a little tactile, real thing that speaks to that great moment, you know, when that was having such an effect on him and on the world, you know, eventually. I love that it was still going. I remember hearing from the fellow that was running it last, who inherited it, that, you know, you had to crawl underneath it, and you had to oil things, and you had to crawl on top of it, and it was held together with, you know, rubber bands and baling wire, and like just kind of was barely squeaking along. And I love stuff that's barely squeaking along, and I hope that it continues to squeak.
That's why we're friends, right?
What's that?
That's why we're friends.
I think that there is a great moment in the evolution of thing, a place, a story, anything, where it's like, it's almost over, it's almost the end, and then anything goes.
Yes.
There's a brief moment where you can go crazy with it. And I think that it was in that for a long time in its deteriorated state. So few of its brethren survived. You know, there were always fires in amusement parks. There were always horrible things that happened. They were sold off. They became collectibles, and they were in people's houses, the actual horses. And that one maintained so much of its integrity and is so intact and beautiful and great. And like, if the city really buys it, wow. I'm Chris Nichols, I'm a writer, I'm a magazine editor, I've been at Los Angeles Magazine for 1,000,000 years, and I write a column called Ask Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Aside from the Disney connection, this carousel has been featured in a bunch of TV shows and movies, and my favorite example is the 1988 movie Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. And this is my favorite example because my mom and I used to watch this movie all the time when I was a kid. So throughout the years, there's been volunteers and preservation groups like Friends of Griffith Park who have helped to maintain and repaint and fix the organ and build the fence and stuff. And one of the most important things about this carousel is that it was a really affordable way to entertain the public, costing only $2 per ride. So even though it's been closed since 2022, I managed to get a sneak peek, which I'm really grateful for. Now in 2025, I learned that the city of Los Angeles had just purchased this carousel for $1 million, and they plan to renovate it and keep it running so that it can stay in Los Angeles and be a local landmark. They're looking for a new company to operate it, and they're raising funds so that they can restore and repair the carousel. And I think they're trying to have it running during the 2028 Olympics in LA. So I'm pretty stoked about this, and I really hope that this carousel being open will help inspire the next generation of Walt Disneys or creative geniuses in their field. Stumbling onto this incredible, beautiful 99-year-old carousel was such a gift for me. It seems like I was in the right place at the right time, especially with Rosemary being there to show me around and tell me some things about it. I think what I learned about this experience is that talking to strangers is really cool, especially when you approach it with respect and curiosity and a smile. There's been a heat wave in LA in the last few weeks. In fact, it's like 91 degrees outside and my cameras keep overheating. And this makes the window for me filming outdoors comfortably about 30 minutes each day, which is almost impossible to film a Mind Over Matcha episode. For that reason, I'm trying to find ways to film more informal stuff like this indoors that I still enjoy making. For some reason, really cool, weird, magical stuff happens to me when I'm filming outside, so I'll still be doing that. But I really hope you guys like this episode. If you haven't seen Mind Over Matcha, I'm gonna put it up there. It's a really special show to me. I'm also working on releasing a music album and a book this year called Baoisms, Everyday Epiphanies of a Mindful Artist. And you can check out and support all of my projects on my website at baovomusic.com. Mink, mink. I really enjoy making these videos, and I love interacting with you guys through the comments, so I'll keep doing that if you keep doing that. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.
My husband's going to kill me. But I can't stand to be up here and not see them.